In the quiet village of Amaudo, where children run barefoot, elders speak in proverbs, and secrets sleep beneath the iroko tree, a boy was born under a full moon. His cry was soft, his eyes were bright. But no one saw the forked tongue that flickered behind his smile. His mother called him Obinna. The villagers called him gifted. The nation would one day call him barrister. But the spirits called him something else. The one who slithers in silence. On the night of his call to Ba, when the world came to celebrate, a secret that had slept for 25 years uncoiled. And what they saw shook the very roots of Amaudo. This is the story of Obinna, the boy who walked like a man, but carried the heart of a snake. Once upon a time in the quiet village of Amaudo, a boy named Obinna grows up loved and admired. He is smart, kind, and dreams of becoming a great lawyer. But Obinna carries a secret, one hidden even from his own mother. On the night of his call to Ba, just when everyone gathers to celebrate his success, a terrifying truth is revealed. They never knew he was a snake until that night. The sun was hot that day in Amaudo. The birds refused to sing, and even the goats stopped bleating. Something strange was in the air. At the foot of the great iroko tree, a woman named Momanjidika groaned in pain. She was giving birth, but no midwife could reach her on time. Suddenly, the wind howled. The sky turned dark, even though it was midday. A loud crack came from the sky. Then, silence. And in that silence, a cry pierced the air. A baby was born. But those who saw it swore the baby's eyes glowed yellow for just 1 second before turning black. Momanjidika named her son Obinna, meaning a father's heart. Though he had no father, she believed the name would bless him. Obinna grew up quiet and gentle. He never fought, never shouted, and never cried. When other boys chased lizards, Obinna read old books under the mango tree. People loved him. Elders blessed him. Women gave him gifts of groundnut and honey. But goats refused to go near him. Cats hissed when he passed. And when he laughed, babies cried. Still, Momanjidika smiled. My son is special, she said. He will bring light to this family. On Obinna's 12th birthday, the dream started. He would wake up sweating, heart racing. In the dreams, he saw himself in a large hall, dressed in a black robe. People clapped. They called him Barrister Obinna. But just as he smiled, he would look down and see scales on his hands. Sometimes, a long forked tongue slid from his mouth. He never told anyone. Not even Momanjidika. I will become a lawyer, he said to himself. And I will forget these silly dreams. But the dreams never stopped. One evening, Obinna went into the forest to fetch firewood. He followed a new path and found an old hut. Inside the hut was a shrine covered in dust. On the wall, there was a drawing, half man, half snake, wearing a black wig. Under the drawing, words were carved into the wood. When the law meets the beast, truth shall crawl. Obinna stepped back. His heart pounded. He dropped his firewood and ran home. But deep inside, something had awakened. Years passed. Obinna worked hard in school. He never missed a day. His teachers said he was the brightest in all of Amaudo. One day, a letter came. It was from the city. Obinna had won a scholarship to study law. Momanjidika cried tears of joy. The village celebrated for 3 days. Drums beat. Palm wine flowed. But the village priest, Poyud, stood at a corner, frowning. That boy, he whispered, there is a shadow around him. Nobody listened. Obinna arrived in Opuno city for the first time. The roads were wide, the buildings tall, and the noise never stopped. He stayed in a hostel near the university. He made friends, or tried to. But even in the city, people felt strange around him. Roommates complained of cold chills. Lights flickered when he entered the room. One girl swore she saw a tail under his bed. But Obinna smiled politely and said, "It must be a rat." As part of his studies, Obinna visited a real courtroom. He was dressed in white and black, just like the lawyers. When he entered the court, the air changed. People shifted in their seats. One elderly lawyer fainted. A judge stammered as she spoke. Obinna stood tall, silent, watching everything. He whispered to himself, "Soon, this will be mine." But deep in his chest, something moved, something that wasn't fully human. That night, Obinna had a dream again. But this time, he wasn't in a hall. He was in the shrine. The same one from Amaudo. A voice spoke to him, deep and sharp, like two stones grinding together. One morning, on his way to school, he met a woman in red. Her head was covered with a scarf, and her eyes were cloudy. She grabbed his arm and said, "Barrister Obinna, your tongue will speak lies. Your robe will hide truth. But the snake you wear will shed skin before the moon." Then she disappeared into the crowd. Obinna searched for her, but no one else had seen her. Back in Amaudo, Mama Njidika was not well. She had started seeing things. Snakes crawling on her walls. Her pots cracking by themselves. She went to Poyud, the priest. "He is my son," she cried. "But something is wrong. Something I cannot explain." Poyud lit his pipe and said, "The Iroko tree remembers. What was buried will rise. Your son walks with scales beneath his skin." Mama Njidika fainted. One night, Obinna's hostel caught fire. Nobody knew how it started. But the fire spread fast, licking walls and beds. Obinna was inside. His roommates screamed, running outside. When the fire was put out, everyone thought Obinna was dead. But he came out, untouched. His clothes were clean. Not even his book was burned. People called it a miracle. But one girl whispered, "He walked through the fire. Like something not human." Obinna loved walking in the city, especially alone at night. But dogs always barked when he passed. Sometimes they barked so hard, they foamed at the mouth. One dog broke its chain just to attack him. It charged. Obinna turned, and hissed. The dog stopped, whimpered, and ran. A passerby saw it all and reported it to the university dean. But nobody believed him. A hiss, they laughed. "You mean he hissed like a snake?" One afternoon, Obinna found a small ring in front of his door. It was gold, with a snake engraved on it. He picked it up. The moment it touched his finger, he felt a cold shock run through his arm. He couldn't take it off. That night, he slept deeply and smiled in his sleep. His roommate said, he was talking, in a language I've never heard. Like hissing and whispering mixed together. Mama Njidika sent him letters every week. But Obinna had stopped replying. She begged him to come home. "My dreams are not good," she wrote. "I see you with two faces. One face is you. The other, I do not know." Obinna read the letter, smiled, and threw it into the bin. "The past is far behind me," he said. "I am becoming who I was meant to be." Obinna's graduation day came close. He was chosen among the best students. He would be called to bar in the capital city. He printed fine invitation cards and sent them to Amaudo. Mama Njidika, Poyud, and even the village head all planned to attend. The whole village danced. Their son was going to be a barrister. But Poyud quietly sharpened his staff and said to himself, "I must go. I must see for myself." On the day before his call to bar, Obinna stood in front of a mirror, practicing his speech. But the mirror didn't show him. Instead, it showed a huge black snake in a lawyer's robe, wearing a wig. Obinna stepped back in fear. Then the snake in the mirror spoke. Mom and Jidika traveled with others to the capital. She brought palm oil, fresh yam, and a small calabash of river water. The water will protect me, she told the women beside her, in case of strange things. But her hands shook as the bus moved. She had a dream the night before, Obinna with no feet, slithering on the ground. The hall was packed. All the law students sat in black and white. Judges and lawyers filled the stage. Obinna sat in front, smiling calmly. As the master of ceremonies spoke, thunder rolled outside, though the sky was clear. Mom and Jidika held her wrapper tight. Her heart beat fast. Even the chief judge looked nervous. As Obinna stood to receive his wig, a bright light flashed in the room. Everyone covered their eyes. When the light faded, gasps filled the hall. Obinna was no longer standing. A massive black snake, wearing a wig, hissed on the red carpet. His robe had split. His shoes lay empty. People screamed. Some fainted. Some ran. But Mom and Jidika just stood, mouth wide open. As the snake hissed and rose high, Poyut stepped forward. He lifted his staff. "This is not the end," he shouted. "This is the beginning." He struck the ground with his staff. A circle of fire surrounded the snake. But the snake laughed, yes, laughed, and said in a deep voice, "I am the law. You cannot judge me." Then it slithered toward the judge's chair. Awesome. Let's dive deeper into this chilling and suspenseful folktale. The hall was frozen. No one moved. No one spoke. Obinna, the snake, had slithered to the judge's chair. His tail knocked down books and papers. He hissed, slow and loud, and stared at the crowd with glowing yellow eyes. Then he spoke again. "I passed your laws. I read your books. I mastered your tongues. But now, I return to mine." People began to scream and run. As Obinna rose on his coils, his white wig fell to the ground. The room began to shake. Lights burst. Windows shattered. Mom and Jidika collapsed, holding her chest. Poyut raised his staff again, chanting in an old language. Obinna turned and hissed at him. "You, old priest, your time has passed. You cannot stop me." But Poyut didn't stop chanting. Mom and Jidika's calabash, the one with river water, cracked open on the ground. From it, a strange blue mist rose and formed the face of a woman. Her voice was soft, but powerful. Years ago, Jidika had gone to the forest alone. She had met a man by the Iroko tree, tall, handsome, with glowing eyes. She thought he was a traveler. They spent one night together. By morning, the man was gone. And near his footprints were snake tracks. She had never told anyone. Not even Poyut. Poyut had long feared the return of the Ogbonkili, the snake spirit that once ruled the land before man came. It had been sealed in a shrine under the Iroko tree. But when Jidika gave birth there, the seal broke. Obinna wasn't just a child. He was the rebirth of an ancient being. At that moment, Poyut pulled out a black book tied with red rope. He had never opened it in 40 years. It was the Book of Tied Tongues, forbidden by the elders. Only a priest facing a beast could use it. He tore the rope and began to read aloud. As Poyut chanted, Obinna screamed, not like a man, not like a snake, but like something from deep inside the earth. His body twisted. His black scales turned red. "Stop him," he screamed. But no one could move. Only Poyut's voice echoed. Suddenly, the walls of the courtroom cracked. Dust filled the air. Statues of justice fell. Obinna's scream turned into a cry of pain. The power of the Book of Tied Tongues was working. But the snake wasn't going down easily. He slithered up a pillar and broke it with his tail. Mom and Jidika crawled to the center of the chaos. "My son, please, remember me. The snake paused. His tongue flickered. For a moment, the yellow in his eyes faded. But then the voice inside him returned. Suddenly, Obinna's chest began to burn. A mark appeared, a spiral with 3 dots. It was the sign of truth, known only to priests and river mothers. Mama Njidika gasped. He is still part man, that mark is hope. Paiute's chanting grew louder. A loud crack sounded from above. A single bolt of lightning struck the courtroom roof, right where Obinna stood. The light burned his skin. Smoke rose. People screamed again, thinking he was dead. But the snake rose again, bigger, faster, angrier. Obinna smashed through the ceiling and shot into the sky. People ran out of the building, crying, screaming, some barefoot, some fainting. Paiute looked at the sky and whispered, "This battle is not over." Then he turned to Njidika. "We must return to Amaudo." That night, thunder rolled over Amaudo. The Iroko tree shook though no wind blew. Snakes gathered at its base. Their eyes glowed yellow. Something was coming. Something had returned. Deep under the village, inside a cave long forgotten, Obinna rested. His body coiled on a rock, his black robe still clinging to his scales. He spoke to himself. Far away, in a secret grove, 7 ancient elders lit a fire. They wore masks and spoke in riddles. "The snake has returned," one said. Another replied, "But he is not yet whole." The third whispered, "We must find the boy inside him, before the beast wins." Mama Njidika left for the river. She carried only a calabash and a red cloth. She wanted answers from the river mother, the goddess who sees all. When she got there, the river was calm. But as she poured libation, the water turned dark. A voice rose from the depths. "You bore a child of 2 worlds," the river mother said. "And now the worlds are colliding." Njidika wept. "What can I do?" The voice replied. Paiute left the village with 3 boys trained in secret arts. They carried spears, charms, and cowries. "We are not hunting a snake," he told them. "We are finding a soul lost in scales." They headed into the forest, toward the Iroko tree. In Amaudo, strange things began to happen. People started dreaming of a courtroom under the earth. Snakes appeared in pots and pillows. Some young men walked into the forest and never returned. They became Obinna's followers, his serpent court. One night, a thief in Amaudo disappeared. The next morning, his shoes were found at the base of the Iroko tree, neatly placed. A note lay beside them. A hooded man entered Paiute's compound at midnight. He didn't speak. He only handed Paiute a scroll sealed with red wax. When Paiute broke the seal, the paper read. The scroll held a prophecy written in an ancient dialect. Paiute read it aloud. Deep underground, Obinna had created his own courtroom. The walls were made of snake skins. The chairs were bones. He sat on a throne of stone, wearing a cracked judge's wig. Beside him, a massive python coiled and hissed. Each night, he judged people in their dreams. A drunk man named Adamu in the next village dreamt he stood before Obinna. The snake judge hissed, "You beat your wife every market day." Adamu cried, "It was the palm wine." Obinna struck his gavel. Paiute visited a pair of twin boys born with matching snake marks. They were quiet, always watching, always whispering. He asked, "What do you see in your dreams?" They said, "A man in black. He says we belong to him." Paiute shivered. He sprinkled ash on their heads. Njidika returned to the Iroko tree with her wrapper torn and her feet bleeding. She poured oil, salt, and tears into the earth. She called out, "Obinna, I am your mother. If I must give up my bread to save you, I will." The wind blew hard. The tree cracked. That night, Njidika heard her mother's voice in the wind. The 7 elders met once again. One of them, the blind elder, said, "Let us not fight him. Let us listen to him." The others shouted, "Listen to a snake." But the blind elder smiled. Every serpent was once a silent egg. A small girl named Ada beat her drum every morning. But one morning, her drum refused to make sound. Instead, it hissed. When her mother opened it, a snake slithered out and disappeared into the bush. Ada said, "The judge has heard my rhythm." A voice spoke across the sky. All of Amaudo heard it. Payud was taken in his dream to a forest full of mirrors. Each mirror showed a child he failed to save. Their eyes were black. Their mouths were shut. Then a voice asked, "Do you still believe in justice?" He whispered, "Yes." And the forest caught fire. Njidika stood before a river that spoke in her son's voice. "You hated what I was." She cried, "I feared it, but I loved you. You tried to hide me." "I was wrong," she said. "Forgive me." The river turned clear and whispered, "Then save me." Obinna stood in the courtroom of his mind. A small boy in rags sat across from him. It was the boy he once was. The boy said, "You left me." Obinna said, "I became powerful." "But you forgot how to cry," the boy replied. Obinna looked away. That night, the moon turned red. The elder said, "The last night is here. The final judgment must be passed." The iroko tree cracked open, and a path appeared underground. Payud, Njidika, and 3 brave men walked in. Obinna sat in his throne. He saw them coming. "I knew you would come," he said. "But I will not beg to be human again." Njidika stepped forward. "Then let me be a mother one last time." She held him. Not the snake. Not the monster. But the little boy inside. She kissed his forehead. His body shook. The scales began to fall. His teeth shrank. Tears rolled down his eyes. He whispered, "Mama." Obinna stood before the stone throne. He raised his hand and broke his own gavel. No more fear. No more false judgment. The underground courtroom crumbled. His serpent followers screamed and vanished into dust. The iroko tree split in two and sealed shut. Obinna woke up in his bed. He was human again. Weak, but alive. The mark on his chest was now a symbol of peace, a snake curled around the heart. People came from far and near to see the boy who returned from the shadows. Years passed. Obinna became a lawyer, but not of men. He judged disputes in the village square under a mango tree. He listened more than he spoke. And when he wore his new wig, it was made of cotton, not power. Old women told the tale. Fathers warned their sons. Mothers sang the song of the serpent judge. But the story was not one of fear. It was one of truth, love, and second chances. And every time the wind hissed through the trees, people whispered, "Perfect." Obinna had peace at last. Or so he thought. But one harmattan morning, a strange bird landed on his window. It looked at him and hissed. The hiss was not just sound, it was memory. He sat up quickly. Not again. Payud fell sick and called Obinna to his hut. "My son," he said weakly, "the serpent was not only in you." Obinna asked, "What do you mean?" "The curse was cast on the land, not just one child." Then Payud closed his eyes forever. Njidika dreamt of 3 eggs glowing red in the forest. One cracked open. A baby cried with a forked tongue. When she woke up, her bedsheet had snake marks drawn in ash. She whispered, "Obinna, you are not the last." The remaining elders summoned Obinna. "We feel the stir," said Elder Nwok. "Another will rise," said Elder Ngozi. "Are you ready?" they asked. Obinna stood tall. "Let him come." In a village far away, a boy named Ofedal beat his teacher during lessons. They laughed at first. until the teacher died, foaming at the mouth. Folktale disappeared into the forest. Whispers said he was raised by snakes. In a hidden cave, young boys trained. Each wore black. Each had snake tattoos behind their ears. Their leader, Folktale. He declared, the world turned its back on us. We will return the bite. And they began to march. Obinna began training children in Amaudo. But not with canes or laws. With stories. He taught them truth, love, and how to spot evil hiding in kindness. The children called him Odigu, the wise one. Snakes crawled into Amaudo silently one night. They did not bite. They only whispered. Each whispered a different lie to a different ear. By morning, neighbors hated each other. Old friends fought. And 2 children went missing. A blind woman arrived in Amaudo. She wore beads around her eyes and spoke only in riddles. She told Njidika, to save one snake, you must cage another. Then she vanished into thin air. In the old courtroom ruins, they faced each other. Obinna, calm, wise, and human. Folktale, angry, sharp, and snake-eyed. I'm what you were too scared to become, Folktale spat. No, Obinna replied. You're what I chose not to be. They circled each other like fire and shadow. They sat across from each other. One must ask. One must answer. Lies meant death. Obinna asked, what do you fear most? Folktale said, love. Then Folktale asked, what do you regret most? Obinna said, not hugging my mother sooner. A tear dropped from both eyes. Folktale's followers attacked Amaudo. But they didn't use weapons. They spread rumors, fear, and lies. The village turned on Obinna, calling him the cursed child again. He was dragged to the square. Njidika screamed, no. Not again. Once again, Obinna stood before a crowd. But this time, he wasn't afraid. He said nothing. Instead, he removed his wig and placed it on the ground. A snake crawled out. The people gasped. Obinna said, this is what hides in all of us. Njidika walked to the center. She raised her hands and cried out. Folktale arrived with his boys. But the children of Amaudo stood in front of him. They had no weapons, just truth. They began to sing the lullaby Njidika once sang to Obinna. One by one, the snake boys dropped their knives. Obinna and Folktale fought, not with fist, but with memory. Folktale remembered hunger, hate, and pain. Obinna showed him love, forgiveness, and mother's embrace. Folktale screamed, stop. But it was too late. The serpent inside him broke into smoke and blew away. Njidika fell ill. As Obinna held her hand, she whispered, you broke the curse. No, he said, you did. She smiled and closed her eyes peacefully. The wind carried her song to the Iroko tree. Years passed. Obinna became the chief justice of the land, not for power, but for peace. Children visited his hut to hear stories. He kept a snake gavel carved from wood. Not to judge, but to remember. A boy once brought Obinna an egg with strange marks. He said, I found it near the river. Obinna looked at it, then smiled gently. Let's keep it safe. Because even a snake can grow into a protector if loved early. Old women still tell the tale. They say, beware the one who hides fangs behind kindness. But also, look deeper. For even snakes have hearts. Moral of the story: no matter how well we hide our true nature or past, the truth will always come to light. Just like Obinna's secret was exposed on the most important day of his life, this story reminds us that living honestly and openly is better than pretending. If you were moved by this story, share it with someone. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful African stories every single week.